She stood on her porch the moment my truck touched the driveway, arms crossed like she already owned the whole street.
You can't move in early. I'm calling the cops right now.
She yelled so loud the neighbors peeked through their blinds. I hadn't even taken the boxes out yet, but I just smiled and said, "Call them. I'll be waiting." She slammed her door, and within minutes, a patrol car pulled up. The officer walked toward me, papers in hand, saying, "Sir, this lady claims you're trespassing." Karen stormed out behind him, waving her phone around. "Arrest him! He doesn't belong here! This house isn't even his yet!" I could see her smirk, certain she had me cornered. But I had something she didn't know. A signed agreement and deed transferred that gave me full rights to the property starting yesterday. When I handed the officer my folder, his face shifted. Karen's smile faded. "Wait, what? That can't be right," she snapped. I leaned against my truck, calm as ever. "Karen, you just tried to kick the legal owner out of his own home." The cop turned to her, already frustrated. "Ma'am, if this paper is valid, you might be the one trespassing." Her jaw dropped. She wasn't ready for the twist I had planned next.
Karen's face turned red as the officer flipped through the papers again, this time slower, confirming every detail. She stuttered, No, I'm the HOA president. I control this neighborhood." The cop raised an eyebrow. "Ma'am, HOA rules don't override state property law. He's the legal owner now." She froze, like she didn't expect anyone to say that out loud. I stayed quiet, just watching her dig her own hole. That's when she made her second move. She pulled out a printed notice from her purse and slapped it against my front door. "You were in violation already. You can't park that truck here, and you can't move in before the 1st. That's HOA law." She looked proud of herself, like she had just won. The officer tore the paper right off the door and handed it back to her. "This is not enforceable. If you harass him again, you'll be the one we take in." Her hands shook as she stuffed the paper back into her bag. But she wasn't done. She pointed at me and hissed, "Fine. You'll regret moving here. We always find a way to deal with people like you." I smiled, because little did she know, I had already filed a county permit that gave me rights she couldn't touch. And if she wanted a war, she had just picked the wrong battlefield. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of scraping metal. I rushed outside and found Karen standing in my driveway with 2 men from a towing company. They had already hooked chains to my truck. "You're violating HOA rules," she shouted. "This vehicle is being removed." My fists tightened, but I kept calm. "Touch my truck, and you'll be paying for it," I warned. The tow driver looked nervous. Ma'am, are you sure? He showed us paperwork yesterday." Karen snapped, "Do it! I run this neighborhood. He's nothing." She didn't notice I'd pulled out my phone, recording every word. "That's good," I said loudly, making sure her voice carried, "because impersonating authority and ordering an illegal tow is a felony." Her eyes widened. "You can't record me without permission," she barked, but she stepped back quickly, realizing her mistake. The driver hesitated, then unhooked my truck and muttered, "Sorry, sir, we're leaving." Karen screamed at them, "You cowards! I'll report all of you!" But they drove off without looking back. I turned my phone toward her and smiled. "Now I've got proof. And since you like blocking driveways, wait until you see how permanent mine's about to get." She didn't understand what I meant, but she would, very soon. That same afternoon, I went down to the county office with my stack of documents. The clerk looked over my file and nodded. "You're already the legal owner, and since your driveway connects to the easement road, you have the right to install a permanent barrier." I signed the permit with a grin. Karen had tried to control me with fake rules, but now I had the law on my side. By the evening, a construction crew was at my property. Karen stormed out of her house when she saw the cement truck backing in. "What are you doing? You can't build that here," she screeched, her voice cracking. I kept my cool. "I can. County approved it. Want to see the papers again?" I waved the stamped permit at her, and the color drained from her face. The workers began pouring concrete, setting up heavy steel posts at the edge of my driveway that lined right up with her property. Karen ran to block them, but one of the crewmen said flatly, "Ma'am, if you interfere, we'll call the sheriff." She froze, shaking with rage, but couldn't do a thing. I stood there, arms crossed, watching her realize she had lost control. "You tried to take my driveway," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Now I've taken yours forever." Her mouth fell open as the posts hardened into place, a wall she would never drive through again.
The next morning, I sipped coffee on my porch as Karen came storming out in her robe, car keys jingling. She marched to her SUV, muttering under her breath. But when she tried to back out of her driveway, reality hit. My newly built barrier sat right across the easement road. Her tires screeched to a halt inches away from the steel posts. She jumped out, face red and wild. "Move this junk right now! You're blocking my access!" She screamed so loud a couple of neighbors peeked from their windows. I walked over slowly, calm as ever. "Karen, this isn't junk. It's a county-approved barrier. I warned you not to play games with me." She dialed her phone in a fury. "I'm calling the cops again. Let's see you talk your way out of this." Within 10 minutes, 2 squad cars pulled up. She rushed at them, pointing at me like a child tattling. "Arrest him! He blocked my driveway illegally!" But when the officers saw my paperwork and the fresh county permit, their expressions changed instantly. One of them turned to her and said, "Ma'am, this is lawful. You have no right to demand it be removed." She stuttered, No, you don't understand. I'm the HOA president." The officer didn't even hide his laugh. "And? That doesn't put you above the law." Karen's jaw dropped. The whole neighborhood was watching now, and for the first time, she realized she wasn't untouchable. Karen's pride cracked right there in front of everyone. But instead of backing down, she doubled her madness. She stormed up to the barrier and kicked one of the steel posts like it would magically fall over. The clang echoed through the street, and she howled in pain, hopping on one foot. Neighbors burst into laughter, phones already recording. "Delete those videos!" she shrieked at them. But no one listened. Her voice wavered as she turned back to the officers. "He's harassing me! He's doing this to ruin my life!" The cop shook his head. "Ma'am, you tried to tow his truck illegally yesterday, and now you're lying again. If you keep this up, we'll have no choice but to cite you for harassment." I leaned against my truck, enjoying every second. "Karen, you wanted power. Now the whole street gets to see who really has it." Her hands trembled as she pointed at me, whispering like she was possessed. "You'll regret this. I'll take this to court." I smirked. "Perfect. Then the judge can watch the same footage the neighbors are already posting online." She froze, realizing the videos were already spreading. One neighbor yelled out, "Smile for Facebook, Karen!" and laughter erupted again. For the first time, she looked small, but I wasn't finished yet. I had one more surprise that would shut her down forever. A week later, Karen really thought she had me cornered. She showed up in court with a stack of fake HOA bylaws and a shaky lawyer who looked like he regretted being there. She strutted in like she owned the place, but the moment my attorney handed the judge our evidence, the room flipped. We had everything. Video of her screaming false orders, the towing attempt, the illegal notice on my door, and the county's permit for my barrier. The judge barely glanced at Karen before slamming the gavel. "Case dismissed. And ma'am, you're lucky you're not facing charges yourself." Karen shot up from her chair. "This isn't fair. He's destroying our community." The judge glared at her. "What destroys a community is abusing authority. You're hereby ordered to stop harassing the homeowner or further action will be taken." Her lawyer tugged her sleeve, whispering for her to sit down, but she ripped her arm away and stormed out. I followed at a calm pace, and when we stepped onto the courthouse steps, the neighbors who had shown up for support started clapping.
Phones recorded as I looked right at her and said, "Karen, you tried to kick me out of my own home. Now you can't even leave yours without facing that wall." Her face went pale, and she walked away in silence.
When I got back home, the street felt different. Quiet, peaceful, like the storm had finally passed. Karen's car sat trapped behind the barrier, her curtains pulled tight, but the neighbors who once stayed silent now waved at me as I carried groceries inside. One even said, "Glad someone finally stood up to her." That night, I sat on my porch with my wife, watching the sunset behind the steel posts she once thought would break me. Instead, they stood as a reminder. This was my land, my home, and no self-made dictator could take it away. I looked at the barrier one last time and whispered, "I didn't fight for this country just to be bullied off my own driveway." My wife smiled and squeezed my hand. Across the street, a neighbor raised the flag a little higher, and for the first time, I felt the whole block breathe free. Karen wanted control, but what she gave us instead was freedom.